The clock is ticking down to Friday, and we have yet to see any moves from Craig Conroy or involving the Flames as a broker. What on earth is the holdup?
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me. Today, we are going to be chatting about the offensive explosion that we saw in Philadelphia last night from the Flames, as well as what the holdup is, because I can't believe it's Wednesday and we have not seen the Flames do they haven't been involved in any recent trades, and it's kind of concerning considering how much of a seller's market this is. Make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We're here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your Calgary Flames every day. And let's jump right into this, because last night's game was unexpected. I do not remember a time the Flames remembered to score 2 goals in one period. As we know, they did not go 9 periods of hockey with more than 1 goal. So, the expectations for last night were very low, but they came out swinging. Connor Zary had his first multi-goal game of his career last night. This was the best performance since his return from injury. I think that he looked great, and there was a lot of talk about him being put on the fourth line, and is like, what was Huska doing? He says he's not sending a message, but why is a guy who had only 1 goal in the last 11 games and was scratched the previous one higher in the lineup, and you're saying you're not trying to send a message? Well, Connor Zary took that personally and scored not once, but twice in the first period. And one of my favorite things about Zary is just that he is everywhere you need him to be and when you need him to be. And his absence was a detriment to the team, obviously. Any key player like that is going to be a loss without them, but I feel like everyone kind of knew their offense would come back and they'd find it again once he returned to the lineup. And I mean, it didn't happen all at once, but he'd come back and, took his strides, and he's made a difference. And I think that that's what matters. And last night, the biggest thing, the first goal it was Braden Pahal who took a clapper from around the blue line, I believe. And Zary was in front of the net to tip it in. That is what you need from him and other players on this team. You need to have guys that are strong net front presence. And that's what I love about Zary, is he is there. He has that finishing touch, and that's something that the Flames have been missing for a couple years now. And to have someone kind of step up into this role and excel is fantastic. I love to see it. I think that we'll see this for many years to come from him. I also have Jonathan Huberdeau as a difference maker. He had 2 assists last night. Just great performance from him. He always plays so well against Philly. I don't understand what it is. I don't know what it is, but just good for him. Love to see that. And Blake Coleman, he might have been a -3, but he played hard. He played out of his mind last night. He had 5 shots on goal, and there was a missed call that absolutely should have been a high sticking and double minor that happened right in front of the ref. And he was like, 2 minutes for roughing. And there's literal blood dripping out of Coleman's mouth. And, like, no, okay, I guess we're just gonna call it roughing. So it's kinda silly. I understand missed calls happen, but it was quite literally right in front of you. I really think that Coleman is kind of this unsung hero. He played this way in Tampa as well, just as a player that, you know, he was always grinding. He was gonna play hard. He was gonna go out there until, he was playing until his last shift. He would leave it. He's a player that would absolutely leave it all on the ice. Like we've seen with, Chris Tanev, for instance. He is one of those players that you're not pulling off the ice. You're not yanking him from a game or, uh, you know, he's not missing a game for nothing. So I do give him a lot of credit, especially at his age. And to be consistently blocking shots the way that he does. And I think that he is such an undervalued asset to this team. And I think he's great. I have nothing against Blake Coleman, but I feel like he is one of the pieces that the Flames maybe should have explored. Trading before Friday. I understand they said they're not moving on from any veterans, so on and so forth. But if a team was calling about Blake Coleman, I would say, what you got? And we're going to talk more about the seller's market and trade deadline a little bit later in the show. But I do feel like everyone was very tired of the way the last 3 games went, and everyone went out there and put their best effort forward. One thing I did not necessarily enjoy was how slow they looked. I feel like both teams, honestly, sometimes it looked like it was like 2 rec teams out there because they were skating so slow. Didn't have that urgency. I don't expect them to all look like Connor McDavid out there, but holy smokes, I feel like some of those zone entries and carrying up up the ice was a little concerning, and I would have had them doing bag skates today. But coming up next, we're going to take a look at breaking the game down by numbers and just how long has it been since Mackenzie Weegar scored a goal. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on the fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. Um, Excellent idea. I usually throw together a same game parlay for the Flames. Probably do that for the Texas game. Probably do, Matt Coronado anytime goal, Jonathan Huberdeau anytime goal, Rasmus Anderson more than 2 shots blocked, and call it a day and hope it's a fun one. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thanks everyone for tuning in and hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube, where you're free Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. And can we just take a second and talk about Yegor Sharangovich? He was scratched against the Hurricanes. And to me and everyone else, that was a message sent. That was, hey, there's guys on this roster that can play better than you and are going to slot in if you can't, rise to the occasion. And of course, he took that personally and he had a goal. It was his first goal since February 4th. So quite literally a month. His first goal in a month. 6 games without a goal. That's bananas. I had him on the player to watch list in yesterday's episode as a kind of pregame keep on your radar sort of thing, because he has these spurts where he'll get on an offensive, I don't want to say an offensive tear, but he'll go on a little bit of a run and then he'll hit a drought and it hits him hard. And I think that being scratched was, that was going to send a message and kind of hopefully inject something into his game. And I think we saw that. However, it's one game. I want to see more. I don't necessarily want to put all of our eggs in one basket and say, oh my God, it's fixed. It was just one game. And we have to be smart about, these expectations and putting too much value in these players. His 5-year contract extension does not kick in until next year. So I saw people talking about prior to last night's game, joking around about doing a buyout calculator for Sharangovich. So that's where things were at. Good for Sharky. Great to see. I hope that he continues to find success because Flames need it and he needs it to defend his pay raise. Speaking of defending, Mackenzie Weegar. My goodness. He scored for the first time since January 26th. I did not realize it had been that long. I know that he's obviously taken a step back offensively this season, which, I mean, heck, he scored 20 goals last year. I did not think we were going to see that again this year. But to see him kind of take this far of a step back, knowing that he has that offensive edge to his game, has kind of been a bummer, because you used to have that with Rasmus Anderson, right? Like you could count on that slap shot on the power play, or, if he was further up the ice, and it's not there anymore. And you really don't want to lose another great shot from your defenseman. And I'm very happy for Weegar. I think that he is such a valued and respected player in this room, and the Flames would never trade him. They've made that pretty clear. And I really like when they put the kibosh to all those rumors too, because there's no need. He is a guy that needs to be in this room. Like, I know we talk a lot about, they don't want to move veterans because they don't want it to be to become too young of a team and a misguided team. Mackenzie Weegar is one of those people that I would need in the room. I don't care, even if you were to trade veterans. He's one of those players. The penalty kill was great last night. I thought that they played very well and they showed up big. And I think that that's huge, considering how much they've struggled this season. And just in general, I think that Joel Hanley has been very good for this team. I think that he's been one of the players, at least I would say since this road trip, that's really stepped up and contributed in a more noticeable level. I know that teams have been calling about him. I don't know what the Flames might be trying to fetch for him, but it would make sense if they traded him. But again, is this road trip going? I feel like we should have a definitive direction, less than 48 hours out from the trade deadline or like 36 hours away. And the fact that the Flames are not selling scares me. I don't know. I do not know. I just think we would be a little further ahead than this. Right now they're 2-1 with one game left on this trip. They've got the Dallas Stars tomorrow, and then they go back home. Thank God. I can't imagine how exhausting it must be to be on the road after that nice break ahead of the trade deadline, especially for players that don't necessarily have like that security of not being traded. But I am intrigued to see if anything happens tomorrow. I don't see things necessarily happening Friday afternoon. I feel like anything the Flames do will be Thursday. I don't think that Craig Conroy's one to work like under the buzzer. But I mean, I also didn't think Craig Conroy was going to throw 7 years, $9 million at Elias Lindholm. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll have to keep an eye on what's happening. And anything that does happen, you can obviously catch here on Locked On Flames or the Locked On NHL channel, as well as the Win column. But we're going to talk more about the trade deadline coming up here in just a second. And what is the holdup? What are we waiting for? Is there something Craig Conroy knows that we do not? Coming up next on Locked On Flames. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and make sure you're following me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Jess Belmosto. So, like I just mentioned, we are 36-ish hours out from the trade deadline, and the Flames haven't done anything. They haven't been a third team. They have not been a broker. They haven't moved any of their depth pieces like a Joel Hanley or a Miramonov or Jake Bing. And we're just kind of twiddling our thumbs and waiting because they're not aggressively selling this year like they were ahead of last year's deadline. Last year, if the market was what it is right now, last year, Craig Conroy would probably be rolling in like a dozen first-round picks, which is crazy. But I think for the Flames, not selling is going to be a huge mistake. And like I mentioned before, you don't have to sell like your big names or anything like that to be a seller. You can trade off some of those depth pieces. They talked about wanting to find a new home for Miramonov. Does no one want him? They talked about people calling about Joel Hanley. Okay, get on the phone, call them back. I guess I'm just very confused why Conroy hasn't done anything when it's a seller's market. Like, are people lowballing you? Are you not interested in the returns? Are you holding on to these players because you think you're going to make a playoff run? What's the deal? When Yanni Gourde and Oliver Bjorkstrand fetch you 2 firsts, what are you doing? Obviously Tampa acquired those 2 players, and I mean, they should, just for giggles, Conroy should call and ask if they want Blake Coleman back so they can reunite that infamous third line that won them 2 Stanley Cups. See what he says. But I mean, not selling is a huge mistake. You have to take advantage of this market. this is a sign that is staring the Flames right in the face. And it's like Craig Conroy's like, this sign's not for me. I can't read. And I don't get it. You want to rebuild. You want to make your team more competitive. You want to get better. And you know you're going to have to acquire players through trade. And it's a seller's market. What is the holdup? Are we sitting on a secret? Are we just waiting? At some point you don't have much time left. You're under the gun here. So what are we doing? You know what I mean? Are we not going to do anything at all? Or are we just going to make a silly little move? Even not being a third team and weaponizing that cap space makes such little sense to me. I would argue it would be one of the most ridiculous moves Conroy has made as a general manager. I get that this year has a very different approach than last year's deadline, but the market is all yours. You are in control. You're not buying. This team is in no position to be going out and getting a Brandon Tanev, to go out and try to acquire, I don't know, one of New Jersey's players that they're going to be trading because Jack Hughes is out for the season. Like, what are we doing? You have pieces that you could trade right now, right this very second, and start incorporating your younger roster players. So what are we doing? If the playoffs started today, the Flames would be facing the Jets. That would be, I do not think the Flames would win a game in that series. I can confidently say that. Okay, maybe they would win one, but it would not be a pretty series. And the Jets can score. Do you know what the Flames can't do? Score. That doesn't mean you need to go out and get a goal scorer. It means you need to reevaluate your goals for this season. And I feel like because they are still in that gray area of being a playoff team and not being too far out of a top 10 draft pick, they don't know which direction to go. And it's just like, you just had a top 10 draft pick in Zane Perrick. And look what he's doing in the OHL. Why would you not want another player of that caliber? Like, to me, that would be so attractive. I would be like, you know what, guys? We're not packing it in, but it's time to just kind of reevaluate. But at the end of the day, it is going to be a huge mistake if the Flames don't capitalize on the seller's market in some capacity. And it would be a real shame because this is partially what they need to launch themselves forward in their rebuild or transitional period, whatever you prefer to call it. And, not taking the necessary steps at the right time can and probably will prolong your rebuild. So we will just have to wait and see because it is Wednesday. So much could happen. Even by the time I finish editing this and uploading it. Who knows? So stick around and find out. Thank you all for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube. We're here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Your team every day. And until next time, see you later.